Good. So now we hear from our very own president, Wolfgang. It's a pity that Jim can't be here, but yeah, they have been working together, and I know that many people have been involved in reviewing our new thinking on capabilities. It's a very contentious subject, so there have been many comments on what we are getting to see now.
Okay, so the first time I called myself an enterprise architect was back in 2007, I think. Yeah? And I thought, okay, that's really a big thing. I'm the enterprise architect. And of course, what I did was application portfolio management. And to do application portfolio management, that means somehow manage the hundreds of applications of Austrian largest bank into a business direction. And it's quite obvious that if you want to do that, you need some clusters, some drawers, some domains, some capabilities, however you call it. So if you want to manage a portfolio of applications, of course, you need some structure and say, okay, these are the accounting applications and these are the marketing applications that's needed. That's obvious. Yeah? So, and that's where I got into contact with the structure of the business. And a bit later, I came across about the work of the Business Architecture Guild. I think many of you are familiar with their work. Who is familiar with BISBOK and so on? Okay, many of them. And when I read it around 2012 or so, I was quite intrigued and say, wow, we can design those bubbles, those domains. No, they call it capabilities. I don't know why, but now there's business architecture. And I think the introduction of business architecture by the BA Guild, we should appreciate that. So that was also a big moment when IT architecture made its step towards business architecture. And then a couple of years later, we started Architectural Thinking Foundation. I got in contact with Annika and Milan in 2018, 2019, and we started some discussions about capabilities. And then we connected to Mike Rosen, who's one of the founders of the Business Architecture Guild. And 1 year we tried to work together and say, we want somehow find a way to connect their business architecture work with our enterprise design thinking. And then there was some clash. Yeah? There was a clash between a mindset, people who like to draw beautiful diagrams and use the language of the business and not a strict language and calling everything management. Yeah? So that the mindsets were not compatible. And there was a really dramatic moment when Mike Rosen asked me at the core team meeting, will you comply to the industry standard on business capabilities? Because we are the Business Architecture Guild. Everything must be named management. Everything must be designed around an object. And I said, no. Okay. And then it broke apart. And that was the next step. And the fourth step, and maybe the most influential step, was when I came across the amazing book by Jim Darling. He should have been here. He has some family issues, unfortunately. They wrote a book back in 2002. It's called The Capable Company. If you haven't read it, you should do it, because there they describe how to use capabilities for strategic management. And they've done it for 20 years. It was their consulting practice. So what they really did, they applied capability-based planning, how it should be, close to the C-suite, top-down with strategic management. And they wrote it in their book. Yeah? And I was really fascinated by the idea to work together with this guy for the last 2 years. So I've given workshops and webinars before. But when I started working with them, I also started to understand how to make it from drawers, so domains like IT architects used to use capabilities, to organic modules of the business that we can shape and design. So that's, for me, it's a crucial thing to bring architecture from the IT side to true business architecture. So that was the fourth step. What would make the session a success? So I think what I want to achieve is that all the designers in the room, so people are closer to user experience and so on, at the end of the session, jump on their table and scream because the topic is so cool, because usually they are not so deeply thinking inside the structures of the company. So mind you, it will be a structural talk. So today, it's not so much about journeys and products. We all know how important it is. It's about the internal structure. So, and I've written those capability guidelines for people like you. At least I tried, and we did it over summer. And the second thing I want to achieve is that the architects in the room don't ask all the nerdy questions, because whenever you post something about capabilities on LinkedIn, you get a shitstorm. Because I'm wrong, or you are wrong, and are those business functions, whatever they are, a lot of confusion. Yeah? So the topic is still immature, and nobody uses it at the business side, we must be honest. It came from business schools in the 50s, so Penrose, Thiese. I was brave enough to try to read some of those papers. So resource-based planning, it was intended to be a concept in the business, yeah, to manage strategy. It's tightly related to strategy. So I see a lot of connection points here as well. So what are we gonna talk today? So what do we want to achieve? We all want to see purpose-aligned enterprises. That's big, yeah, from purpose to the bit of IT to organization. We all want to see it. Seems to be difficult. I've never seen a company who has done that. And if you know me and you attended some of my webinars, I'm a big fan of adaptive enterprises, and I believe adaptivity is a structural quality of an enterprise. It's an engineering, it's an architectural property of an enterprise where we don't focus enough. Everything today is about delivering value, products, time to market. Yeah? But maybe the reason why so many Fortune 500 companies are not with us anymore are that they are not adaptive enough to adapt to the ecosystem. And that has to do with architectural properties. So these are the two headlines. I would encourage you to shout out a question whenever it appears. I want to keep it interactive. Yeah? So please feel free. Keep it interactive. So what is it what we want to tackle? What do we want to cure? We can complain about, yeah, but we know that enterprises struggle with their purpose, to struggle with executing on their purpose. And one of the reasons may be that hundreds of projects, thousands of people work on the how every day. Yeah, so we implement IoT, we implement the new shiny generative AI. We run hundreds of initiatives, but we are not able to cluster them and trace them back to the purpose. So we have project portfolios, millions invested in projects, and that they are simply not aligned. That's really a huge pity. So that's what we want to tackle. And we believe, yeah, it's because disciplines work on the how before the what and why is clear. And billions are wasted. Yeah, we have those project portfolios, organizational structures. So managers structure their organizations in teams and departments. Yeah, I'm in charge, I'm the manager. And the way they think of the structure of the company are their departments. So they are doing organizational design. The problem here is that that's quite political, and I've never come across an organization that was well designed. Yeah? So that means clear accountabilities, clear boundaries. So we must be honest enough and say that enterprises are not really designed. They are structured, sometimes structured by brute force. Yeah? So I'm in charge, I'm the manager, I want to be the head of 5,000 people. That's my goal. And that's not design, it's structuring. A lot of money is wasted because enterprises don't have a concept to design the modules of the business, modules first. So that's what we want to do. And in a nutshell, and this one is really simple, thanks Milan, I think you created this idea. We are talking about today, what do we want as a company, our purposes. We do talk a bit, what do they want, customers, ecosystem. And the difficult thing is, and now what do we need to do? It's as simple as that, yeah? It's as simple as that, but of course all companies struggle with this error. It's not as easy as it seems. Or of course we can represent this in EDGY. The focus is on capabilities, but we will discuss how to connect capabilities with the purposes of the enterprise. How can we know that what we are capable of doing today and what we will be capable of doing tomorrow is in line with our purposes? And for our service and UX designers, of course, we need to know the tasks, what do they want, and so on. But that's not really the focus of today. The focus is on capabilities and how can we translate the purpose here to capability, and finally design the organization based on the capability structure, design the processes, but I should do a capability first design. And which assets do I need? So there's the IT again, IT and data assets. So if you're reading EDGY, so that's our definition, capability is what we are able to do by orchestrating people and assets. So think of it as a module. I like to call it a module. And inside this module, you have people with a certain skill, workers in that case. You have processes like the process of track maintenance, some activities those workers perform. And they need a digger maybe, a gravel, a trackinator, which is an application to produce a well-designed output. It's an output, not an outcome. We can discuss, maybe it's a bit nerdy, why we use it and call it as an output, not an outcome. Okay, so we have two sections in the capability modeling guidelines. And if you want to open them on your mobile, I don't know if you want to do that, you just go to enterprise design and then you can search for capability. That would be too easy. I think the strategy here is that over time, we want to have those how to model at least for the other outcome elements as well. So it's the first section we have in EDGY where we say, okay, that's a capability. That's what we are able to do. That's what the capability is all about. But so far, we didn't give any advice. Okay, how do I model capabilities? And the whole world is confused, it seems. I haven't seen many well-designed capabilities on the internet. So, and if you go there, how to model capabilities, then you will find the capability modeling guidelines. That's how all of our EDGY tools are structured. So we focus on most phases. Scope is architecture, flight level. We want to connect flight level strategy, coordination, operations. And of course, we give kudos to Jim and this Wolfgang here. Yeah, and we have these two chapters. So the first one is purely structural. So not much about people there, but that's important. So that's the first part. How to structure a capability map. It takes me a while to understand that I can no longer use the Lego bricks metaphor. Yeah, so whenever I discussed the topic, I presented it in Lisbon at an organizational designer conference. Capabilities are like Lego bricks. We want to have composable architecture. That's completely nerdy. I think in the head of a service designer, that must be weird. And they said, no, it's not. It's not engineering. You cannot engineer people. And that's totally true. I know this. Yesterday, we had a lot of talks about it. Now I use the term organic business model. Organic is a beautiful metaphor. And this picture, I would say it's a so-so visualization by ChatGPT. My daughter did it. Hopefully I can come up with a better one. It's the best I have so far. The idea is that first somebody creates the beds, so the blend beds. We must know, okay, that's finance, that's human resources, that's marketing. That's easy. Sounds easy, but in the practice of complex enterprises, that can be really hard. So first, you design the beds, so the rough structure of your enterprise, and then people enter and plant some seeds and wait how it emerges, and the plants grow and grow, and sometimes they grow across the beds, and sometimes you get some connections between capabilities. So people interact with each other, one department, one team. With each other. And for me, this is the most beautiful metaphor, the best way I can express it so far. So it is still composable, but it's a compromise between top-down, only draw roughly the bed. So what do we need to be capable of doing? And then use the creativity of the people and let them shape their processes, their IT assets. But without those beds, without the boundaries, it would be a complete chaos, we know that. And we want to see that as a capability-first approach. So we should no longer structure organization in departments as the first way to structure them. We should think of them in a capability-first approach. That's the idea. Yeah, so to make it more edgy, you start with, I need the capability of track maintenance. I don't know exactly how we're going to do that, but we know we need a serviceable track. That's a well-defined, well-designed, distinctive outputs. Together, what belongs together, cohesion, that's another concept coming from engineering world. So that's what we want to do. And then the second step is, okay, and now let's think about which people do we need, which departments, team, how do they work together, which processes do we need a digger, whatever do we need? Design the how as a second step. We believed it would be a fundamental change. No company on this planet does it so far. We are brave enough to say, hey, do a capability first approach. The world is nowhere close to it, but we are brave enough to propose it at least. This is a bit nerdy. I don't know, but it's maybe only for the enterprise architects. How can I ever recognize that something belongs together? So a company is huge, complex, thousands of people, hundreds of processes, IT systems. It's a mess. And I want to find stuff that belongs together. I want to take my pen. Okay, what belongs together? And one way is, of course, to look for specializations by object. In that case, I could say I design a capability around power lines, and I could say I have the capability to maintain a power line, and I have another capability to maintain the tracks, and another one to maintain the stations and so on. So I have several capabilities, each one for specialized objects. That's what the Business Architecture Guild proposed to do always. But what we propose is there's another way to specialize. So another example is logistics. So this lady here has a huge warehouse, and in this warehouse are all kinds of parts. So you specialize around the activity. You don't say, I do logistics for power lines, I do logistics for. You do logistics for everything. So that's might seem nerdy, but it makes a huge difference if you think of it that way. So if you start on your journey, think about what belongs together. So then you want, and I'm the architect, that I want loose coupling, like in IT systems, engineering components. If I have loose coupling, it's easier to adapt, because if I want to change something, I can add new modules, and it's way easier to change the interactions and to extend and to adapt if you have this loose coupling. So it's an engineering concept, but it still works also for groups of people, and that's what we want to see. So we want to bring the idea of engineering, modularization, componentization to the business world, finally. If you know me, I have the vision to bring architecture to everybody. And loose coupling is a super important concept in architecture. Maybe the reason that so many Fortune 500 companies are gone is that they were not adaptive. Maybe nobody structured them according to such a similar approach. And now we take the opposite way. So Annika starts smiling. So we were on the struggle. If you follow her way on the Milky Way, we follow the flow. We start with flow, and many approaches propose that value streams. Go with the flow to product delivery, and that's not wrong. That's perfect. And that's also a good way to find capabilities. So if I'm new to the company, I definitely start with following the flow. I start with, okay, I need to deliver the product passenger transport. What do I need? I need capability to drive the passenger train. Maybe I need some railway station services. I need to prepare the train, but before I need to do some shunting, and I need to sell tickets, and I need to do passenger information. So having a flow and modeling an organization in this kind of value flow makes complete sense. But my point here is that people usually, when they do that, forget about the modularization aspects. And if you do that, you lose the benefits of adaptivity. So if you optimize for flow, you don't optimize for adaptivity. So maybe this one, I like this quite. So for me, those flow and adaptivity, it's like yin and yang. I don't know why I'm the only one to see that. It's like dancing. Because efficiency seems to be king, and we are so process obsessed and flow obsessed, and I 100% agree. But if we don't also look at what belongs together and try to have this modularity, then we have companies that are super efficient but not adaptive, and then they also die. So that's not a good idea. So balance it. That's my point here. And now it's about how can we balance these two approaches. Yeah, so now we have this modularized approach, and of course we want also to have adaptivity, and we want to reuse capabilities. So why not as a next step? Yeah, so we start from collecting two different processes, if you want, value streams. If you're more into these concepts, we don't like value streams, but it's similar. Then you can look at it and say, hi, is it very different to do the shunting for passenger transport and do the shunting for freight transport? And the answer of intersection railways, I use this in this example, is no. Why not reuse this capability between those two processes? Yeah? And finally, drivetrain, I put a question mark. Yeah, but it's not an easy choice. Is it the same thing? Do we have the same people, the same staff for driving trains at night? Because freight trains are usually running at night and at day. So I add a question mark here. Is it really the same capability to drive a passenger train or to drive a freight train? I don't know. It depends on, do you need different people? Maybe the locomotives are different and so on. So that's if there's a question mark, you need to dive deeper, and that's where the design starts. Yeah? But the idea here is, how can we balance efficiency with adaptivity? Yeah? Reuse capability between those flows and do that intentionally. Don't only go with the flow. Don't only optimize for flow, because that way you are the most efficient company, but if there's disruption, you're not adaptive. Yeah? Okay, and then some people know, so Thomas, you know, we are a bit language freaks, and most of you probably missed last week's session, how to make sense of any mess. Abby covered. For me, she's the goddess of language, the goddess of clarity. And I've used a lot of her work, and I quote her a lot in the guidelines. You need to work more on language than you think. I think we are way too easy on language. Yeah? I've not seen many companies that have a well-established glossary. Create a glossary. You get a lot of conflicts, but embrace the enterprise's dialect. Yeah? So it's a team effort. What you want to have is a shared glossary. You should pursue to have to learn a common language, even if it's impossible to reach it at the end, but you should do it. Don't accept poorly defined concept. I must say it again, don't define poorly designed concept. It's not obvious what company means with customer, with partner, with contract. What did you mean? And if you confuse that, and if you're not clear on the very basic concepts, your whole IT and organizational structure falls apart. I've seen that at Austrian Railways. Yeah, they called everything train schedule. They had 15 types of train schedules. Then Thomas and we consolidated to 3 or 4 types of train schedules that changed the organization completely, that changed the IT systems completely. Don't be easy with language. Yeah? Introduce new terms with care, vigorous verbs, for example. When you name capabilities, don't use management all of the time. Please, no. Yeah? Use the term that is most common in the company, so you can use HR, you can feel free to use finance and so on. I can be really passionate about language because it's the foundation of all modeling. Maybe someday we can come up with a language guide in EDGY and so on, because this is not only true for capability modeling, it's true for all modeling. Read this book. If you haven't read this book, this is awesome. And then finally create a 2-dimensional layout. So that's the final part of the structure. Yeah? So that's a bit nerdy. I feel it already. It's a bit too structural before we come to the more exciting part. I've seen so many capability maps out there on the internet and in companies, and I was not able to grasp them in an instance. Yeah? Some layouts were only by columns. Yeah? Some enterprise architecture tool vendors propose, oh, we have some columns, but we have nice colors. I've seen capability maps where I wasn't able to say, is this insurance or is this a railway, or because they were so abstract, following plan, build, run something, so the products were not even visible. Yeah? So such things. Make the major product groups visible. Express the relationship between capabilities. So if you have a 2-dimensional layout, and I have an example for you, so that may be a potential, and that's what we use in the guidelines, it's an example. You have 2 dimensions, yeah, and do a 16:9 layout, which is presenter friendly, like I've tried to do here. It should fit on a page, yeah. Railway company on 1 page. That's a railway company on 1 page. At least it was the best I was able to do. And use those 2 dimensions wisely. Don't use only columns, for example, yeah. create a nice looking layout. You want to have a beautiful map. Otherwise, the board wouldn't look at it. So that sounds obvious. That's trivial. I know that. Yeah. But you can use the layout to express dependencies. Yeah? So you could say sequence of time. Yeah? In that case, first the passenger gets information, then they sell the tickets, then they use the railway services. Yeah? Or you could decompose by product groups. Yeah? We say, okay, in that case, we have passenger, we have night, we have freight trains. So that it's a grouping. That's the criterion for grouping this level 3 capabilities here. So in that case, you decompose it by product groups. And it's also strong to use a two-dimensional layout based on dependencies. What depends on which, for example, and first I need to have a railway infrastructure in place. I need to plan it, I need to build, maintain it, and I need to do some resource management. But of course, the train operations depend on a railway infrastructure. So usually try to do what's below is so the thing that is above something depends on what is below. You could also use the other axis to express dependencies and so on. So for example, for building and maintaining, you depend on some resource management capabilities. These are shared capabilities: procurement, logistics, asset accounting. I need to do machine resource management, material resource management, crew management, whatever. So you need to manage resources as a shared capabilities. These are capabilities that are shared for the building and maintaining, for example. So that's use the two dimensions wisely. Use terminology wisely, and that sounds all obvious, I know that, but it's really hard in practice, because you always have too much information. It takes a lot of time and effort and focus to come up with a map you can use at the boardroom, and they say, wow, that's us. For the very first time, I see a map of a railway company that expresses what we agreed on us. That's the moment you want to create with this map. That means you have a high quality standard, yeah? High quality standard of clarity, high quality standard of layout, dependencies, and so on. Been there, I've done that. I've failed a couple of times, and it's still tough. It's still tough, but there are some guidelines in the capability modeling guidelines that go deeper and explain how to use language, how to use structure. So maybe now to the more interesting or exciting part. It's more inspired by the work of Jim. As I mentioned, so I'm coming from this bottom-up engineering approach, IT, and you can feel this structure, what belongs together, loose coupling, that's kind of me. The next session is more of Rich. I've never worked in strategy. Finally, I've moved into the strategy space 2 months ago, so I'm still working on my way up. But Jim has done it from the other way around. So he started from the top down. He's done a lot of consulting projects with huge American companies, Bose, for example, and he used capabilities for align investments with purposes. Now we change to a management language. Yeah? That's what I want to bring into this community. We must start to talk about USPs and key differentiators and SWOT, and because otherwise we will never connect to these people. Yeah? If we only talk about journeys and modeling and maps, they are not so keen. I mean, the managers, they like their language, yeah? Differentiators. So now the language changes dramatically. There's a lot of Jim, yeah? Read his books. That's amazing. But what you want to achieve is to find a way how to finally align. Yeah? And it's really close to what I see in strategy. So we really must work together, and a lot of similar ideas. So for me, it seems easy to connect. An organization pursues a purpose. We want to go in a certain direction. We're not always clear about it. Yeah? So purpose modeling, how to model purpose, will hopefully one of our next guidelines, a difficult topic. But they should somehow agree on those purposes, the existing organization. And of course, it needs people, the existing organization, to build according to the purpose the future state capabilities. So where are we now? Where do we need to go? So that's from purpose to capability. And on the other hand, and here's user experience again, what do they want? What do we want? What we as an organization, how can we set up the capabilities needed to what we want? And how can we set them up at the same time to create the products that serve certain tasks? What do they want? And that's this tension we have each and every day. That means when you discuss strategy and vision and purpose and so on, so I have vision, that's an activity, I have mission, vision, USP, strategy consultants come in and so on. And then you have strategy, which is where to play, how to win. So I like Roger Martin and so on. Yeah. Goals, KPIs, maybe. Yeah, we know those concepts of management consultants, but what they are usually not doing, they don't translate this KPIs they have and the goals they have and the vision statements they have to a capability map that's agreed upon. So making capabilities an explicit instrument in strategic planning and in organizational design challenges the works of the big consultancy firms that go in and say, I have this vision, and they go for a nice workshop with the executive team, Boston Consulting, whatever, and they come up with the vision and the mission for the next 5 years. You know, the result is some shiny content, some shiny text and so on, and nobody in the room has a deeper understanding of the capabilities of the business. So the pity is if there's no capability map to challenge what they are discussing, and nobody says, okay, could you please explain what does it mean? Which capability do we need improved according to the vision statement you just created? What does it mean? So you move from the why do we need to do it, maybe closer to the what. Before you go to the how, because finally, when there's some agreement on the vision statement, on the purposes, then it's time to design the organizational structure and to design the process and to design the assets. What I've seen in companies is they design assets all day long. My company, we have hundreds of IT projects. I need to have this application, this data. We are in the how, hundreds of projects, processes. We know them a bit, the processes. Of course, we have a org chart, but it's totally not in line with the IT systems and so on. And with capability, with the way we want to see capability is, do it in a capability first approach. The idea is to make it a true management instrument, to bring it outside of the IT space, and co-create it with people. That's the idea here. Because of time reasons, I won't dive into this one. So if you're imagine you are new to a company, you don't have any idea what the business is all about. And you start your journey to model a capability map. You start with understanding what's going on, as is capability, what's going on in a company. That can take some time. A good first step, and we have a prompt in the guidelines, we have a response. Jim has done a lot of work of using AI to kill the blank page. So now you're new. Why not use AI and other sources to get outside inspiration? What's going on in my railway industry? I can use a prompt for Central EU passenger travel. Who are my competitors without? Who are they? And then you dive deeper and ask, consider a complete capability set and so on. So that's use it. It's powerful. Of course, it's not the business you are in. So the next step is to explore existing content, and that can take a while. So why not browse content that how does the enterprise see the future? How do customers engage with the enterprise? Which products it creates? Org charts. There's a lot of existing content. Usually when I have a new assignment, I take 1 or 2 months to read all the stuff and start sketching a capability map. I think ChatGPT had made a better job in this diagram here. That's not bad. It's almost like what I do. But that's only for myself. I always start sketching. It's super important to know what's going on in the business and try to have an understanding. That's the easiest part. You get all kinds of information, but you will end up with thousands of questions. Of course you will, because you need to talk to people to really understand the problems and so on. And now it gets really tricky. Now it gets really, really hard, because somehow you must run a process and connect from strategy. So senior leadership, you need them to accept the map. You need that they use it every day in the boardroom. I want them to point their fingers. We need to get better here. We need to get better there. I can't understand why they don't have it usually. How could they ever do strategy without having a map to point, we need to invest. I don't know how they are doing it anyway. And that's the real challenge. Also have the senior leaders with their concerns. And then you have middle managers usually. I have little conflict icon here. Sometimes you have some resistance and they don't like the transparency you bring with capability maps. And then you have the business experts. They know what really goes on. And in each and every company I've done that. I've done it bottom up. Jim has done it top down a lot of times. It has large benefits if you start from the top down, because then you have the mandate by senior leadership. You have more guidance. You have maybe more attention of the people. Maybe it's easier to tame the middle manager who always are reluctant to go with your capability maps. So there are 2 ways to go. You can do it bottom up. and talk to the business experts first. That's what I usually do in iterations. Yeah, you go to them and say, okay, that's what I found, that's what I understand, what's going on, yeah, and you will get really candid answers usually. That's what if you build trust, if you apply those patterns, and if you build a relationship to those people, now it gets closer to the people aspects again. Listen to them, try to understand what's really going on. Maybe start heat mapping the current status. Are we good at doing this capability? Are we not good at this capability? And do iterations between business experts. Yeah? And have really a sound understanding before you move to the middle managers. Now it's getting really difficult. It's getting really difficult. I've read a book 1 month ago, Snakes in Suits. This was really flabbergasting, I would say. I was a bit uncomfortable with showing it, but my experience is like that. Yeah, we can give all structural guidance capabilities. You should do it that way. But if the manager in charge, the middle managers, all too often men, sorry to say that, then you have a problem. You have obstacles. They don't like transparencies. They have large egos. Yeah, the book quotes studies that more than 50% are narcissists, yeah? So egos. So why should they really care about capability map that is for the good for the whole enterprise? I have this in my company. That's really that's the real challenge of capability modeling, dealing with that, and I need my soft skills. Not everybody likes the transparency, so be aware that what you want to get, you want to have the one and only map. Everybody agrees. That means transparency, and it's easy maybe to have the transparency in the bubbles. But as soon as you use them for heat mapping and you say, no, that's a red capability, we are unable to perform it, we need to make it better, then you point with your finger to one of the middle managers and say, you don't do your job right. That's tricky. So that's the hardest part of the work. And that's the reason why it's a good idea to also try to get some top-down attention. I know how hard it can be. It depends, of course. Yeah. So Jim starts top-down. Then he gets more strategic direction. It's easier to bring the middle managers on board, but then you have some troubles with staying connected to reality. So it's always both ways. Most of the time, I'm forced to start bottom up. Yeah? After 3 years at my company now, I'm trying to go top down and connect that world. That's not easy. So be aware that there are lots of conflicts. And there is some guidance, yeah. So that's just a part of the capability modeling guidelines, how to deal with them. Of course, that's not the silver bullet, but what you can do, you can create a power map. That's what I do, yeah. Intervene into the system, understand their personal interests, listen closely what's going on. Yeah, now it's getting soft again. Show empathy, respect for the time, provide concrete examples, explain that you have a mandate. I'm here to help the and if you don't have the mandate, if nobody on top says, yeah, Wolfgang, I need a capability map, we need to transform, I want you to create this map, yeah. And if you don't have the mandate by those persons, then it falls apart, because then the middle managers say, no, why should I do that? I don't have time. What is it? A capability? Is it a process? It's really easy to push the poor guy running the capability process and push them aside. So that's just one warning. Okay, and the final thing is, the final part of this session, now it gets management again. Benchmark as is capabilities. So imagine after half a year of running this broad process, it takes time. So if it doesn't take 1 year, you don't do it in the right way. It really takes time. You need to run 40 interviews at least, mediate conflicts between people. It's really hard and tricky. But finally, let's imagine you have a map and you have some agreement across 40 business experts and 30%, 60% of the middle managers. Now it gets really tricky. Benchmark as is capability, that brings transparency. And our advice here is compared to the competition. Yeah, you'll use all kinds of sources to understand competitors' capabilities. Websites, public data, research firms, large language models again. So in the guidelines, you will find some prompts. Yeah? Please provide some feedbacks. There may be more powerful prompts. Use LLMs and you will get some cool answers. What are the strengths of your competition? Yeah? So that's important because you want to have a benchmark that is related to your competition. And then That sounds really obvious. Yeah, use some color codings, only 5 colors. Are we good at it, or are we not so good at it? Yeah, that's not really a scientific method, but it's enough to reveal those conflicts. Now it gets really political. Nobody wants the guy here. IT never gets it right. I put my blame on the mighty CIO. How might I? Well, the CEO he gave me the mandate. He just asked me, I should do a benchmarking. If I don't have this mandate, it's really hard to put this red sticky to this capability, for example. And you can do that in groups of people. Now that it gets really dynamics, invite the right group of people, do some liberating structures, whatever. You need to be uncomfortable. So, Lorena, we need this skill as well. It gets really uncomfortable now. Even if this is an analytical approach, it really gets uncomfortable now. Now we need all the strong social skills, yeah, and facilitation skills. That's the hardest part, yeah, that a group of people agrees on red. That's orange. You always put the blame on the middle manager. Always. They don't like it. Yeah? But if there's trust in this company and if there's movement and direction from the strategic management, if you have this mandate, then he has to take care of these dynamics, yeah, because you have escalations from the middle manager. This Wolfgang here, he put a red sticky. That's not right. We just delivered the new SAP system. IT is not right. It's not red. Yeah? And that maybe at the first start, that starts the dynamics. And when this dynamics unfolds, it's maybe also a good idea to dive deeper, yeah? And dive deeper. Why is it red or green? And there are some criteria. Are we not efficient compared to the benchmark? Yeah? Is it about the customer service? Are we not good business continuity? Yeah? Do we need to mitigate operational risk? Do we have the people and the skills? That can be a reason why a capability does not perform. Technology, level of automation, modernity. Do we have technical depth? The IT systems don't support the processes usually. Cost, is it way too expensive to deliver this capability? Sustainability, should we take better care of the planet, for example? So these are just some criteria, and in the guidelines we say, okay, find the criteria that fit for your company. Not everybody says, okay, we don't care about the planet. So designing which criteria you use for benchmarking, for heat mapping, is already an intervention, is already enterprise design, because then you know what these enterprise values, what are our criteria, and are we a group of people, are we aligned to a purpose, do we have a leadership that is able, that's not often the case, do we have a strong leadership that is able to resolve the conflicts that we bring to the table with this benchmarking? That's not easy. Yeah, but that helps, yeah, because then you can dive deeper, run workshops. Okay, are we too expensive? You can get the numbers, maybe some operational figures. How expensive is it to produce a product and so on? That's the idea. Yeah, you can prompt it. And then as a next step, okay, now we say, okay, we have this E-step. Imagine you have a capability map. Everybody says yes. And then a miracle has happened and you have a map and everything is heat mapped and everybody agrees to what is red. And then that next step is, okay, where do we want to go? So the green arrow. Where do we want to go? What is our vision? And at the intersection group, so in the guidelines I have an example, you know, how all the vision statements are verbalized usually like this. Our vision is to lead the transformation by designing and operating the railway system of the future. Yes, the railway system, but what does it mean? Doesn't mean much. We are committed to building a reliability, forward-looking, whatever forward-looking means, that ensures the highest standards of safety. Safety seems to be important and so on. So what you can do with EDGY is to just browse these kinds of vision statements or the work done by Boston or other strategy consultants and try to model it as purposes. That's where we have the purpose element in EDGY. We design and operate the railway system of the future, and then you model a hierarchy of purposes. We build a reliable railway. We guarantee a safety for passengers and employee. We want to be the number one, so that's about growth, maybe more. We strive for efficiency and cost effectiveness and so on. So that's also EDGY. We need more guidelines for how to design a purpose hierarchy. So maybe somebody wants to write that. Okay, and the next step here is define what's distinctive. So what makes us different? That's coming from Jim. Yeah. So managers like, what's our USP? What's our market competitive advantage and so on. That's how they think, what is it? Yeah. use enterprise design to find out what makes you distinctive. Yeah, now you know what your competition is doing, and then look at your capability map, look at your products, look at your EDGY diagrams, and point with your fingers and say, okay, this capability is distinctive. Let's imagine night trains, passenger trains, that's distinctive. And what is it? Where do we need to excel in this in this business? Where do we need to excel because of our purposes and because of what our customers want, the products we need to deliver? Yeah, and then the math is quite simple. Yeah? What you finally want, and that is, I think, the final slide. In the guidelines, you find a spreadsheet how to calculate it. It's a simple math. Yeah, now you know where are we good at, where are we bad at. Is it a problem that we are bad at this? Maybe it's not distinctive. That's maybe it's okay. We are performing okay, but it's good enough. So we are performing as well as competition, and it's not distinctive. It's not where we want to excel based on our strategy. Where do we need to get better? Yeah, so that's distinctive. So the process, understanding the vision and using capabilities to clarify the vision and say, okay, this vision would mean we need to have new power plants. For example, the energy management, they want to build, where is it? No, they need to create power plants and so on. Which new capabilities do we need because of strategy? And if you bring this to the table in a strategy dialogue, it's way richer. You no longer talk in fluffy vision statements. You can use those questions to challenge them for the very first time. And I'm as a Wolfgang, I challenge the holy vision. Boston and the CEOs must be good. That's the idea. Okay, so that's the final slide from our training. Currently, capability maps are using uncommon language and are used by enterprise architects. So this, what you've seen here, is a vision. Yeah? I've not seen it in many companies. I'm doing it in my company. It's tough. I'm not there yet. But for me, it's the only logical way to go with the capability map. We must bring it out of the IT ivory tower. It's too good to have only drawers. Yeah? What we really want to do, you want to co-design it by the business experts and use it throughout the company for strategic management. If you don't do it, you're not really doing capability maps. And that's an announcement for what we are planning next. Today, managers structure their organization by teams and departments without any design. That's how I perceive it. Yeah, they say, okay, I need this team driven by political concerns. So we mix structural aspects. Of course, teams are structured to be delivering distinctive outputs a bit, but they overlap quite often. I've seen so many flawed organizations as a combination of politics and gut feelings. What we want to see is that you run a co-design with many co-creators. We want to enable the people coming from the bottom up. We need the creativity of the people. So that's also a bottom-up revolution. Yeah? We don't want to have the snakes in suites, top down, single people. I know it all. I want to structure my teams in departments. No, we want to run a broad communication process. And what is it what we need to do? What is it what we want? So that's what EDGY is all about. And our idea would be in the next year or so with a cooperation with the European Organizational Design Forum, there are patterns. Yeah? If you do capabilities first, there are patterns how to derive organizational structures based on these capabilities. And that's the part of the next chapter of the capability guidelines.